Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. After a long time I'm back and today in this video I shall be discussing Carl Jung's 4 stages of psychotherapy, but before that I'll be analyzing what a self-narrative is. Basically, self-narrative, we can define it as an individual's account of the relationship that exists among self-relevant events across time. Since in this self-narrative, the narrator mainly deals with all the events that occur in his or her life across time. That is why it is also considered to be very helpful in the process of, narrative therapy, because as far as narrative therapy is concerned, it mainly highlights the individual, which is in fact one of the important factors of psychotherapy. In fact, self-therapy takes place through self-narrative, and we can conclude saying, that self-narrative actually provides that medium, that platform through which self-therapy of an individual takes place. Now, let us discuss on which these self-narratives are centered. It is said that these self-narratives are centered on the individual, and in fact it relates everything that occur to the self in that particular narrative. And that is why whenever we read a text, which is a self-narrative, so which has the structure of a self-narrative, we find that they are always written in the first person. They always have the first person narrative, and at the same time, these first person narratives are characterized by an autodiegetic narrator. Now, what do we mean by an autodiegetic narrator? Autodiegetic narrator implies a narrator who himself or herself tells his or her own story by actively participating in the narrative. And it is through this self-narrative that it allows the narrator to create his or her own identity through their narration, and ultimately they reach a stage where it is found that they are able to develop a better understanding of themselves. So, as such, according to Carl Jung, these self-narratives can be associated very well with psychotherapy. Now, what is a psychotherapy? According to Carl Jung, the great philosopher, and a psychologist, he's not just, I don't just consider him a philosopher, but a great psychologist at the same time. So psychotherapy is basically a dialectic process. Dialectic means a discussion where only two parties are involved, where a discussion takes place between the narrator and the narratee. Although the one who is listening to the narrative being told by the narrator plays a very passive role, but still the narratee's presence as an entity is acknowledged by the narrator. In fact, in the text, The Diary of a Young Girl by Anne Frank, we find that Annie comes up with several fictional characters. Maybe she had read those characters in several books, and it could be that these characters were not actually invented by her. But one name which became very, very famous in her diary was the name of Kitty. So we find that Annie, always addresses a person who is referred to as Kitty, and with whom she corresponds, because after she gets into the hiding in the secret annex, she writes in her diary that she needed someone to correspond to while being in that closure, while being in that secret annex. Apart from this, now we shall look at the 4 stages of psychotherapy, because according to Carl Jung, there are 4 stages of psychotherapy. So let's discuss what these 4 stages are. The first stage is confession. The second stage is elucidation or explanation. The third stage is education. And finally, we have the stage which is transformation. So according to Carl Jung, these are the 4 stages of psychotherapy. So what happens in the first stage? As far as the first stage is concerned, which is the stage of confession, here we find the narrator, revealing all the secrets or talking about all inhibited emotions, which are quite analogous, or let's say which are quite similar to those sins, or let's say those desires which remain repressed in the human mind. So in the first stage, all these secrets are confessed. And why are these confessed? These secrets are confessed, these inhibited emotions are confessed by the narrator. Why? Because it enables him or her, to regain that wholeness, that whole existence, that what lies within, because it gives an opportunity, to voice forth what lies within an individual. And that enables, like if we refer to the person as a narrator or let's say as a patient, then we can say that it allows that individual to regain that wholeness. The second stage is elucidation. The word elucidation itself means explanation. And here in the second stage, we find that this explanation or elucidation, goes deeper and deeper, because it analyzes whatever has been admitted or confessed by the patient or the narrator. All those revelations are actually explained as well as analyzed at this stage. Basically, it implies that it deals with the consequences or the results of these revelations that are made by the individual. Next, if we talk about the third stage is the stage of education. Now, what does it deal with? The third stage of psychotherapy, which is education, it mainly focuses on those mechanisms, on those strategies that are employed, to make the individual come out of himself in order to, attain normal adaptation. In other words, we can say that the several strategies, the several initiatives that are taken in order to make the individual behave normally and accommodate himself or herself in the normal atmosphere. So it's kind of education, which this stage is called the stage of education by Carl Jung, because he feels that at this stage, it enables the narrator, or it enables the patient, to understand himself more and more. As far as the final stage is concerned, it is the final stage of transformation. Why? This stage marks the change of the individual, because the cure of the patient is entirely dependent on him or her as well as the therapist. Now, here we should take into account, and here I would like to make it a point that when we shall read the Diary of a Young Girl by Anne Frank, we shall find that there is no therapist as such. So the question that comes to our mind is, then how does the therapy take place? How does the transformation take place? So as I said, this transformation entirely depends on the individual as well as the therapist. But in case there is no therapist, then how is the therapy going to take place? So here we should understand that if there is no therapist as such, as we shall find in the Diary of a Young Girl, that Annie doesn't have any therapist as such, so what she undergoes is self-therapy, and she gets that opportunity, to undergo self-therapy through her narrative. So here we come to know the 4 stages of psychotherapy, which are defined by Carl Jung in order to, depict, or let's say in order to explain how a narrative allows an individual to undergo therapy and bring about transformation in his or her own personality. So we have come to the end of the discussion of these 4 stages of psychotherapy, and in my next lecture I shall discuss how these 4 stages of psychotherapy work in The Diary of a Young Girl by Anne Frank. I hope you liked the lecture. So if you liked it, please like it, share it, and subscribe to my channel if you find it helpful in your understanding of the text. Until then, bye.